How's everybody? Oh my gosh, there's no energy here. Everyone's contemplative, little Trappist monks. So today is your kind of like it's like a mini confirmation. It's a little mini preparation because you guys will be getting confirmed in, it's about a month. When's your confirmation? The 26th. You guys excited? Good. You know, like sometimes we forget that it's very exciting, and it's actually worth being excited to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, to be saved in grace, to have your life transformed. These are like good things that are worth being excited about, right? It's like that's how come we call it the good news, because we're not spreading mediocre news. We're not even like, I don't even want to apologize, right? Sometimes I feel like we apologize too much about Jesus. Jesus came to fulfill God's plan to save humanity and to save you individually. And that's pretty awesome. No matter what happens the rest of your life, you will have your faith, you'll have Jesus Christ, you'll have the sacraments. Confirmation is not graduation from Catholicism. I need to make that like perfectly clear. In fact, it's like the first step into actually embracing the fullness of the faith, like with your will, your heart, and your intellect, your mind. When I was your age, I really didn't go to church at all, to be honest with you. If I did, it was because I was drugged there by my mom or my dad. I was raised Protestant, right? It wasn't until I was much older, in my early 20s, that I actually really started questioning, like, what is it? Do I actually believe this thing, right? Like how am I going to shape my life? Is Jesus going to have any portion of that? Or is this just something that's like ridiculous and made up? And eventually we all have to cross that river. That river of like, I can't just be like someone that floats along and does whatever everyone around me says. I have to actually investigate this. I actually have to own my decisions. I actually have to allow God to enter into my heart, or just step away. It took a long time for me to become a priest, because I went through Protestantism and I went through all these other things. I didn't become confirmed Catholic until I was 24 years old in 2006. You guys are what, in the 8th grade? How many of you guys are in the 8th grade? How many of you guys are in a different grade? 9th grade? 10th grade? 11th grade? We have 11th graders? Juniors? Are you really? Or are you just... All right, what about seniors? Do we have any seniors? Really? We don't have anyone in college here, do we? Because normally you're a little older for that. But the gift that you guys will receive is awesome, and it's worth being excited about. So, that's what the theme of this afternoon is going to be. I invited 4 people to come and tell you about their faith and why they're excited about their faith, why they're excited about Jesus, why they believe. They really have kind of an open end to tell you guys whatever it is. You guys are coming close to confirmation. Why is this important? We'll listen to 2 speakers. We'll have lunch. We'll listen to 2 more speakers. And during lunch, we might have a breakout. And I want to challenge you guys to actually look inward. Why is this important to you? It's a question worth asking. Who's our first speaker? I forgot. Liz? Joel? Okay. I'm going to actually bring up Liz or Nancy up, and they're going to introduce all the speakers. I'm going to step back. If you guys have any... So I'm going to be floating around today, okay? So here's my pact with you guys. If you guys want to talk about something about your relationship with Jesus that you want to chat with a priest about, okay? I'm going to be floating in the back. You're welcome to break off from your group or from the lesson at any time to come chat with me individually. And we'll go into the cry room, and we'll chat. But that's only if you have some serious concerns about getting confirmed, or if you have some serious questions, or if you have something that's delicate that you really only want to trust a priest with, okay? Other than that, guys, I'm praying for you. April 26th is going to be an awesome day, and I hope you guys recognize it as an awesome day. Nancy?
Thank you, Father. Okay, our first speaker is Mr. Joel Newberg. He is a teacher, and I think, is it middle school or high school? Middle school. He teaches middle school students. I got to meet Joel about a year ago, and I just felt his energy about his faith, and I felt he would be a great person to come speak to you. So I'm handing it over to Mr. Joel Newberg. Thank you.
Is this thing on?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. So this is honestly like a really weird thing, because if you were to tell me like when I was in high school that I'd be doing this, it wouldn't be like not even close to this, right? So a little bit about me. I do teach 6th grade history and English. I'm more of a history guy, but I kind of had to teach English anyway. It's beside the point. I grew up in Wisconsin. It's like a small town farming community. I actually grew up on a farm. I was like hitching wagons a lot, helping the cows, and it was really like a Catholic-based group. This is weird. I teach every day, yet now I'm extremely nervous. My heart is racing. It didn't help that I had like a triple shot of espresso right before this. This was not a good idea. So growing up Catholic, I went to Catholic schools, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Catholic everything, and it was just kind of assumed that I was going to be a Catholic. With my family too, it was kind of weird because I'd ask questions to my dad. I'm like, hey, why do we think that the body is actually Jesus? And he'd be like, because it is. Okay, Dad. Sounds good. So a lot of like my faith throughout, like as I was growing up, was expected of me, and I didn't really question it a whole lot. So in a way, I almost took it for granted too, because I didn't really know what it was or what it was about. It was just church, and you go to church because that's what you're supposed to do, right? And for a while then, like high school especially, like I did not want to go to church. I did everything in my power to avoid it. I would stay at my friend's house, and then we would like go to church, grab a bulletin so I could quick like look at the reading. We'd go out for breakfast, and like my mom was like, did you guys go to church? Of course, the reading was from John and blah, blah, blah. So I was very sneaky in really trying to get out of Mass. I was doing everything possible to get away from it just because I didn't think it was that relevant. All I do is sit here. One thing about teaching too, there's nothing worse than sitting down and your teacher lecturing you for like an hour, right? You just totally gloss over, not listening anymore. And that's what I kind of felt church was. I had to sit, I couldn't be quiet. I would make jokes to my sister a lot, and my dad would, did your parents ever give you like the death stare? You guys know the death stare when they look at you and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, Dad. I'll never do it again. My dad's a really nice guy, by the way. He didn't beat me or anything like that. I'm making him sound kind of intimidating, but anyway, so like church wasn't a fun thing for me. I didn't really enjoy it. So one thing though, like my family was always very consistent in their faith, and I always noticed that. My dad, my mom, my sister, my grandma, my grandpa, they're all strong Catholics. And it kind of for a while made me wonder too, like what is it about this thing that I'm not getting? What do they see that I'm not seeing? But I still fell away from it, fell away from high school, avoided it. College, I kind of cut loose and did whatever I wanted. It was almost like I took pride in like waking up on Sunday and being like, I'm not going to church today. That's right, it's my own decision. But after a while, it just kind of felt like hollow a little bit. Like I knew what I should be doing. I knew I should go back to church. I did get confirmed when I was a junior in high school. So you juniors out there, that's how old I was when I got to choose, which I didn't really feel like it was a choice, right? It was like your parents are telling you to do it, but you just did it anyway. But I'm really, really glad I did that. Anyway, college did whatever, and it was really, so like I said, I'm a history teacher. I took all history courses in college. I love Rome. Is there any history buffs in here? Anybody like history? Yes, that's what I'm talking about, my people. What's your favorite type of history? Let's just get a little bit of interaction going so I'm not just, favorite type of history? Ooh, yeah, love American history. Yes, sir, in the back. Get more specific, European history is very vast. Are we talking Middle Ages? Are we talking feudal kings? Are we talking Crusades? Are we talking all over the place? Modern European. Like 20th century, Industrial Revolution kind of stuff? I'm way off on this. Okay, cool. History? Oh, I love mythology. That's really cool. I get to teach mythology too. Right here? Civil War. My big thing, anyone's ever seen the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe? Yeah? Seen it? 2 people? 3 people? All right. Okay, it's on Netflix, guys. It came out in 2000 at one film of the year. Go see Gladiator, okay? There's violence, but it's really cool. I love Roman history. Roman history was my jam. That and Greek history because of mythology. I loved learning about the gods and everything like that. Anyway, sorry, I'm boring some people. Let's get moving here. So I took this Roman history, and it was Rome the Empire. And like I said, in church, I'd hear all these teachings. We go through the first reading, second reading, and it was just, I didn't really understand the stories. They would say these ancient cities, ancient civilizations. I could never put it together. But taking this Roman course, my teacher was phenomenal. We always went through primary documents, real documents that were like available at that time, and they've actually survived the test of time. We're able to learn about them. One of them really made it kind of click for me. It was a Roman governor had just received like this notification of a person leading a group of over 1,000 people and had just was able to feed this mass group of people from only, a couple loaves of bread and a fish. It was actually specifically alluding to the miracle of the fish and the loaves, right? Because all the things I ever knew about Jesus was only in church, right? This was the only time I ever learned about Jesus. So here I was getting something in college, something completely independent, and it really made Jesus like real, like, wow, this was a real person who actually existed and did these things and like lived the life that he did. And then that makes the crucifixion incredibly real too. If you guys didn't know, crucifixion was a really hardcore punishment. That is a very specific crucifixion. Usually crucifixion is you tie someone to a post and you leave them there to die, right? They just die of dehydration, they die of starvation, whatever. They die of the elements. That's crucifixion. What they did to Jesus was a very crazy example of crucifixion. They wanted to make an example out of him. And if we know, too, about our faith, too, he knew about this going into it. He knew that he was going to die. He knew all the torture and all the things that he was going to go to. And if you think about that, could you let that happen to yourself? That is some really rough stuff. If you know tomorrow you're going to die, and you know in a horrible way you're going to die, you could avoid it if you want. You could leave. You could escape. But instead you stay and you allow that to happen to yourself. That's really, so like, it was kind of that moment that I was like, holy man, okay, I need to maybe look at this a little bit more. I started going back to church and I started looking at the book as like, okay, these are teachings. The Bible's a collection of wisdom, right? Now human beings have existed for 100,000 years on this planet. And I studied like a lot of civilizations, Mesopotamians, Babylonians, Europeans. I mean, we could go through the whole list of different civilizations. Technologies change, environments change, climate changes, right? But human behavior does not change. We as people, we do the same things. So you guys growing up right now, you actually share a lot in common with people that grew up 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. Human beings and their behavior doesn't really change. So I started to look at the Bible as more of like lessons that you can learn. How can I take what they're saying right here and apply it to my life? So me being a history nerd really helped me out with that. Let's see. I had to write down notes because I knew I was going to forget a lot of stuff. And I'll try to keep it kind of short because I don't want to lose you guys. Let's see. So let's get into why my faith matters. That was my background. I kind of came back to the church in college, and I haven't regretted it. I really haven't missed a Sunday like for a while now. And I really find it if nothing else, I forgot. My mom had always said to me too, God gives you so much, and he asks for only an hour of your time a week. That one line stayed with me for years, where like this little guilt in the back of my head of like, I do have a really awesome life. I have an incredible family. I was able to move out to Utah. You guys have mountains, by the way. Wisconsin, we do have mountains. Like you guys can go out in the national parks. This life is beautiful that we have, and it's all because of God. And he only asks for an hour of you a week. I mean, he asks for other things too. We need to go out in the community and love one another and blah, blah, blah. But I think going to Mass, that really makes it worthwhile and it makes it meaningful. You only need to, God just wants to spend time with you guys. He just wants to love you and hear you and see you in his house. I think that's pretty minimal for all the things that he gives us. Anyway, why my faith matters. I found that in the Catholic faith too, every part of this is like laced with love. Every religion has its bad moments, and Catholic faith is not, crusades there's a lot of like bad things going on. We had some bad things in the past 100 years or so with the priests and everything, but really you can't look at specific instances in a faith and just take it from there. You got to look at the teachings, and what our church tries to teach us, what they try to instill in us, is to love one another and improve the lives of everyone around you. Let's go to the back side. Reconciliation. I think reconciliation is one of the coolest parts about our faith too. You can mess up a billion times, and as long as you're able to kind of confront those problems, those issues that you have, God is willing to forgive you. You can sin an infinite number of times, but if you were willing to go back and just be honest and say, listen, I messed up and I'm really sorry, I'm going to try to be better, God welcomes you back with open arms. And I think that's really, really awesome, just the power of love. Everything that he does and everything that he teaches us is love. I think that's really important. God understands how imperfect we are, and it doesn't matter how many times we fall. He's always there to get you back up again. The importance of prayer. One thing I'm really trying to do, I'm 32 years old, and I still kind of struggle with this, but prayer is really, really important. I found prayer is really good for when you lose someone, when you're going through a hard time, whatever. I just like to be able to pray to God and ask him, hey, can you be with me today? That's what I'm really trying to do in the beginning of my day. Do you guys know work is a form of prayer? Anyone else know that? No one else knew that? No? So apparently I just found that out. But if you start your day, if you guys are going to school, you can actually dedicate your day to, hey God, I'm going to get through my day at school, and I'm going to dedicate this extra studying, this extra focus, I'm dedicating that to you, or I'm dedicating that to people in Ukraine, or I'm dedicating this. So your daily action can actually be a form of prayer, okay? God wants to be involved with your life in any way, shape, or form. He just wants you to let him in. So if you just open up that channel, he's going to be there for you. He's going to come for you. I had something else about prayer. Maybe I'll come back to that. I'm getting nervous in front of you guys, and I'm seeing glossed eyes, so I'll try to wrap it up here. Let's see, I covered that one. Oh, your choice of confirmation. So what I also think is cool too, if you guys know some religions, you are born into it, and that's just you're set now, that's it. I do really appreciate that the Catholic Church, you do get to choose. We're not just we baptize you right away, but that's, so you don't go to HE double hockey sticks right away, right? Where you just get that out of the way, you get baptized, original sin gone, okay? But what you guys are doing right now is actually really cool. You guys are electing to join the church. It's not like you were baptized and you are a Catholic no matter what. You guys are actually willingly taking this step. I think that's kind of cool that you have that choice with it. Man, I really want the importance of prayer thing, but I'm really struggling on what it was. Have you guys seen my hands shaking up here? This espresso thing is really getting to me. Well, while I try to think of it, do you guys have any questions, or are you guys, how are you guys doing? Show of thumbs, are we doing good? Yeah. What's up, Harris? Okay.
Joel, if you think of that prayer thing, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can come to it later, but definitely share with your small group. We're going to hand it over to Liz Canto. It's Liz Canto next.
Save me, please. All right. Thank you so much.
Hey y'all, do y'all remember me? I'm Miss Liz Canto. So I'm gonna kind of chat with y'all a little bit of how, why am I here? Why the heck am I even talking to y'all? What brought me here from Florida, where I'm from? So I definitely feel you, Joel, about the mountains. It's been about 2 years and I'm still staring at the mountains every time I come into work. A little bit about myself. I'm from Florida. I'm a middle child. I have an older brother and a younger sister. I have two parents. One's a doctor, so he's always sprinting into Mass on Sundays right from the hospital. My family is very, very Catholic, to the point that my dad's dad was going to become a seminarian or a priest back in the Philippines where he's from. He was like one of the altar boys, would wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to ring the bells to let them know, hey, Mass is happening soon. But then he met my dad's mom, and obviously he didn't become a priest. And he married my Lola and had my dad and their multitude of children and whatnot. My mom is very, very, really into her faith, to the point that when I was actually about your age, I was just like, Mom, please stop talking to me about the faith. Like, why are you dragging me to Mass? Because fun fact, I actually didn't like to go to Mass. I didn't want to go to prayer. I was a very completely different person than what you see before you. I would pick fights with my family. A common thing that you would hear around the house when I was in middle school and high school was the sound of a slamming door or me yelling, I hate you, get out of my face. To the point that it was so bad that my brother would actually come up every day, multiple times a day, and just be like, Liz, what's going on? Are you doing okay? Like, why are you acting this way? I'm very confused. I'm concerned for you. And at that moment, I was just like, I knew in my heart that what I was doing was probably not the best thing. But I would just be like, Andrew, just get out of my face. I don't want to talk to you. Leave me alone. I want to be by myself. And slam the door in his face. I would go to school and I would do the schoolwork because I was supposed to be doing that, but I just hated doing everything. I hated my classmates. I hated my friends. I did sports, but I didn't like doing the sports. I would do it because I was being told to do it by my family. I would essentially just go to school and come home and repeat. I was not involved in youth group. I did not go to Mass. I did not help out at Mass at all. Or I would go to Mass, but I would always be kicking and screaming and thinking of it as a way to just, it's a nice hour to just nap and just listen to someone talk at me. And when the summer came around, it got to the point that my mom was like, hey, I heard of this Catholic youth conference. I want you to go. And at that time, I was just like, get out of my face, leave me alone, I don't want to go, why the heck are you making me do this? And my mom was like, hey, I understand, Liz, but I'm telling you that you need to go. And your brother's coming with you, so you're not going to be by yourself. Because you're going with this other youth group that's like 4 hours away to a different state, but I have faith that it's going to be okay. And so I remember I went, and the whole time I was just like, this is the worst thing ever. Why the heck am I here? One, why am I here with my brother? I don't know a single one of these people. There's like 20,000 people in this room with me. Why the heck am I here? Why is this man talking about the monstrance and the Eucharist on this table? This is super boring. I hate it here. And I just remember, this went on for like a day and a half. The whole time I just sat there and I stared in anger at every single person in that room. And I just remember that come Sunday or Saturday night, we had this thing called adoration. And I remember it was about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I just remember sitting there the whole time, just like being like, my butt hurts from sitting on this ground. I'm bored. Come on, I want to eat. I want to sleep. I want to do something other than being here. And then all of a sudden, I just remember looking over at my brother, who was very extroverted and made a lot of friends with these people I did not know. And he was in the midst of like praying or something. He was praying the rosary with some of his friends that he had made. And I remember looking at him and I was just like, huh, that looks a little interesting. Like, what's going on here? But the thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that my brother is crying. My older brother, I have never, ever seen him cry other than this one moment. But it wasn't like a type of crying of like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. Oh my gosh, like I'm being very emotional. It was tears of joy. Like I just remember looking at his face, and I can still see it clear as day, and he was just radiating joy and happiness. And he just kept his eyes on that monstrance, and I could just tell that he was being so encompassed with love. And I was just like, I took a moment, and I was like, that's interesting. I don't like what's going on with me. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't like the fact that I've been fighting here. I feel empty. I feel alone because I've made myself alone. I hurt every single person around me. I refuse to have a friendship, a relationship with anyone, even my family. But my brother is right over there. He's surrounded by friends, praying the rosary, and he is happy. And you could just feel that love radiating from him. And I just remember being like, I want that. How can I get that? And I just remember turning, and I was just like, Lord, I know I feel alone. I feel abandoned. Let me know, one, that you are there. Let me know that you love me. And let me know that you care for me regardless of what I've been doing. And the next thing I know, I feel changed. I no longer feel this emptiness within me. I feel joy, like actual joy for the first time in a very, very long time. And I knew in that moment that I needed to change. Not just say that I want to change because I want what my brother had, but because I knew I needed to change what I was doing. And immediately, it was almost as if the person next to me knew what was going on. The person next to me reached my hand, who I was like, I don't want to talk to you, like 20 seconds before this. She reached for my hand and told me she loves me and that she knows that God loves me. And in that moment, I just start crying my eyes out. Now, I'm not an emotional person, and I don't really like crying in front of people, especially people I don't know. And like the last hour, 30 minutes, I was just sobbing to the point that I couldn't see. And I just knew that with every single tear that was coming out of my body, God was putting his love in, and he was filling me up and changing me. To the point that when my mom came and picked me up about a day later, half a day later, I remember running out to go to the bathroom, and she was walking in to join us for Mass. And I just remember being like, "Hi, Mom, how's it going? I'm going to the bathroom, I'll be right back." And I just remember she took a step back, and she was like, "Who is this person?" I don't recognize this person. This is not the same person who was yelling at me about 3 days before about how much she hated me and did not want to be coming to this event. Something's going on, and I like it. I really like it. And I just remember from after that moment, like, I felt like a changed person. I had a great desire to do things. I became involved. I started doing more extracurricular activities. I joined different clubs at school. I even went back to my youth minister that summer, and I just flat out told her everything that was what I had experienced, and that I had a deep desire to do more. And I didn't know exactly what that more looked like. I didn't know if it was like, I don't know, doing a Bible study, joining youth group, which I hadn't been doing before, going to Mass, helping out at Mass. I wanted something, and I had this desire to know more and to become more engaged. And eventually, I became very involved in service. I did a lot of service throughout high school. I started to serve at Mass. I became a lector. I really did any, like my sister and I ended up finding and like not finding, but developing this service club where we would actually, we called it the cooking club, where we learned how to cook things, but what we would cook, we would actually give that money or like that food that we had made or raised, and we would give it to this ministry known as Lighthouse Ministries in Florida, which ultimately is aimed at trying to serve and help those who are homeless so that they can have a fresh meal. I'm just gonna wait for the bells. So like the food that we would prepare would help feed like the homeless so that they can have warm meals, some fresh clothes, sack lunches, and whatnot. I became so involved in service that I would average about 100 hours of service a year, just because I knew that I felt that what I was doing in this service was sharing that love of God that I had experienced that had changed my life. Whatever it could look like. It could have been cooking, it could have been serving, it could have been reading at Mass, whatever it was, I wanted to share that love that God had given me. But just because I had that one experience and changed my life, I still had moments where I felt alone, and I felt like God had abandoned me. I felt isolated. And although I still had this desire to learn, to continue to have this relationship with God, to get to know Him more, I still felt like sometimes He would just be like, not right now, not right now. And I was just very confused, and I would try and figure out what to do. And so I remember I went on this girls' retreat with my youth group, and I just remember we went to Mass, and we had adoration afterwards, and I was just like, God, I feel alone. Like, why do I feel alone? Like, help me realize what's going on in my life. Why am I feeling this way? Like, do you still love me? Like, I don't know what's going on. And in the midst of this prayer, I received further affirmation that no, God had not left me. He was still there. He still loved me. He still cared for me. And although my life had changed drastically from that one point, I realized that He was still there and that I needed to keep pursuing Him. I needed to keep having this relationship with Him. And so therefore, I felt further committed to reinvest in my faith. And so I went back and I remember talking to my youth minister, and the next thing I know, I become a youth leader of the youth group and really trying to kind of find ways to kind of share that, yes, God loves you, not just you, but you individually as well. And this feeling I had really led me throughout the rest of my high school. It reminded me that I needed to engage in Mass more, or I wanted to go to Mass more, or I would go to adoration more often. And even in these affirmations, it wasn't like this gigantic feeling like I had of that gigantic feeling of love, but it could even have been in a phrase. Like Joel had said about how his mom had that one phrase that stuck with him. But going to Mass, or going to prayer and reading these readings, or hearing something being said in the homily, or a song that's being played during Mass really stuck with me and reminded me, oh, yes, that's God saying that He loves me. That's God saying that He cares for me. That's God saying that He's still there. And so by the time I went to college, I was very, very into my faith. And I really wanted to kind of find avenues in which to kind of pursue God in different ways. And so I became very involved in our Catholic campus ministries at my undergrad. And every break, so they would have like your Thanksgiving, fall break, and your spring break, I would always sign up to do a service trip because I didn't want to travel about 12 hours down south to go back home during these breaks because it would only be for a few days. And I remember signing up for my very, very first fall service trip with Catholic Campus Ministries. And we had decided that we were going to go to this monastery and serve with the missionaries of the poor. Now, who here has heard of the missionaries of the poor? Who here has heard of Mother Teresa and her order? So the missionaries of the poor is like a brother order of the Sisters of Charity, I believe, is what Mother Teresa's order is. And so I remember hearing that, oh, okay, we're going to a monastery, there's going to be brothers there. Okay, what do I know about people who are very Catholic? Okay, we're just going to sit around and we're just going to read the Bible, and there might be some chants or some prayers that I don't know. It's fine. I'll just spend 3 days doing that. That's fine. But going to serve with the missionaries of the poor, I actually discovered that wasn't exactly how they live their life. Yes, they do kind of sit around and they pray. They do the liturgy of the hours. They have Mass every day. But they do more than that. They went out and they served the people of Monroe, North Carolina. And I remember we got there, I was really hungry, and I was just really tired. I had this full expectation of like what these brothers would look like. And I just remember they all come running in, still in their like albs and whatnot, habits, and they were running up, super sweaty. I was very confused as to what was going on. And they go, "Hey, how's it going? How's it going?" And I was just like, what the heck is going on here? I'm very confused. This is not the type of contemplative monk man person that I was kind of picturing. And they're like, "So sorry we're late. We were playing soccer with some people down the road. But come on in. We'll get you some dinner and stuff." But the one thing, like, first off, I was very shocked. But the one thing that really kind of stuck out to me was the fact that they were joyful. Like, they were very, very happy. A lot of what they actually ate or like what they consumed every day was given to them as donations from people around Monroe, North Carolina, because they ultimately relied on donations to eat. And I remember being like, this is actually really cool. Like, I really like this. I'm learning more about like what it means to be Catholic, that it's more than just sitting around and just praying or reading the Bible. And like their happiness was just so contagious. I just remember sitting around talking about, I don't even remember what, but I just remember like always leaving these conversations that I would have with these brothers, just being happy, like feeling joyful. It was just so contagious. And I just remember, actually, I wrote it down right here. One of the brothers, his name is Brother Fidel, actually sat around and told us when we were having lunch after feeding some people experiencing homelessness, he turned to us and he told us, "Do all that you do with a smile. By doing that, you are spreading the love of Christ." And that sentence like really stuck out to me, of like doing something as small as just putting a smile on your face is sharing that love of God. And as time went on and I continued to move throughout college, I became very into different types of prayer. So I got really into doing this thing called Lectio Divina. Who here has heard of Lectio Divina? No, yes. So Lectio Divina is it's known as a holy reading. So essentially what you do is that you choose a chunk of reading or whatnot. I usually like to do it off of the daily readings. And you read it multiple times. And each one would you'd focus on something. And like this type of prayer, I had decided that I was going to spend like 5 minutes doing it, but I fell in love with doing this Lectio Divina so much that I would just continue to do it. And the next thing I know, later that semester, I was spending 2 hours a night doing Lectio Divina because it like really turned into a type of conversation that I would have with God to kind of help me understand what I was experiencing or what was going on in my life. And it helped me realize some things that I might have forgotten. And the one thing I want to kind of stress is that having this friendship, this relationship with God, the more that I was able to understand what's going on in my life or how to deal with the fact that I felt alone or how to have a relationship with him. And hold on, let me back up 1 second, just 1 second. And so I actually had this really difficult time in college. And so I had a really good friend. She was like the only Catholic in my hall, and she started to go through these challenges, and I just didn't know how to handle this. And I was like, I am not a trained professional. I don't know how to deal with what she's going on to and how this is impacting me. And the one thing that I knew I needed to do was that I needed to turn to God. I needed to rely on him so that I could be able to, one, understand what's going on and get a better understanding of that perspective of how this is impacting all of us, but also of how, like, I need God to be able to withstand what's going on in my life. And so the one thing I want to stress is that the more that I was able to turn to God, to rely on him, to ask him for aid, the more that I was able to endure or withstand these challenges. The more I felt supported and loved and not isolated. And I want to leave you and end this with a quote from one of my professors from Notre Dame talking to us about faith. And he said, "Faith does not take you out of that tunnel, but it holds you up in the midst of it. Faith in God is what helps us to continue to move on, to continue to do and have this relationship with God." Thank you.
Miss Liz? Okay, it is now time. We're going to accomplish a lot in the next 45 minutes. It is time for lunch, but we're going to do it in our groups, and then it's also discussion time, and if there's time, you might do some icebreakers in your group. So you are eating lunch with your group and your group leader. So we want St. Patrick group with Miss Carlson. You're going to head into room B to get food first. It's pizza, it's chips, and it's cookies. Please take 1 or 2 pieces of pizza. They're huge. First, you will have the opportunity to come back if we have leftovers, but take 1 or 2. Make sure you're going to eat what you take, please. And then you can decide, Ms. Carlson, where you want to go. All right, head back there. Room B is where the food is. You're going to walk right through it. Okay, the rest of you, those groups, you're actually going to we're going to do one group at a time to get through the food line. I will come find you, but you guys can head to wherever you want to be for lunch and for discussion time. You are allowed to move for discussion time if you don't want to be at the tables, okay? But go ahead and grab your group. You should be sitting together. So we've got Miss Maria Goretti right here, St. Maria Goretti, sorry. And then we've got St. Francis, St. Francis. Mr. O'Neill has St. Francis, St. Joseph, Mr. Newberg, he's back there. So St. Joseph group, go to Mr. Newberg, and then Miss Canto has St. Joan of Arc. All right, perfect.
Well, hello, welcome back. How was lunch? It was good? And thumbs up if it was good? Yes. It was. Okay, great. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker. His name is Mr. John O'Neill. He teaches at Juan Diego Catholic High School, so some of you may or may not recognize him. But he is actually a part of my program with the ECHO program, so he's also working towards a master's in theology at Notre Dame, but he works here. So without further ado, Mr. John O'Neill.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? Yeah? Is it pretty loud? Yeah, I have a loud teacher's voice. I see a couple of my students here. They can probably attest that I yell a little bit in the classroom sometimes. So I'll try and keep this sacred space pretty sacred. But yeah, good afternoon. I hope lunch was good. I know for a fact that pizza is like one of my favorite things to eat. So it's pretty great to have that today. Yeah, for those of you who haven't met, my name is John O'Neill. You can call me Mr. O'Neill or Mr. John or whatever. I'm a member of the ECHO program with Miss Liz. So I moved out here to Salt Lake City about 2 years ago. I'm originally from the Chicago area. So like all of our past speakers, I never saw mountains before in my life. And then coming down Parley's Canyon in my little 2010 Chevy Equinox with my brakes on fire, I was like, this is awesome, this is beautiful. So it's just an awesome pleasure to be here. The weather's beautiful. I went skiing yesterday, that's why my face is all sunburned, but it's awesome. So when Miss Liz approached me and asked if I could give this talk, I was a little nervous, not because I have a problem speaking in front of people, right? I do that for a living, I'm a teacher. And before that, I won competitions on public speaking. So that's not really an issue for me, but I've honestly never had to share my faith story in this kind of a context, right? I've never had to get up in front of people and tell them exactly why I'm Christian or exactly why any of this matters, right? And so I figured that for my story, I'll kind of just start in the beginning and tell you a little bit about me and about my family and how I came to know Jesus and why I'm still here. So my mom is a devout Catholic and a Polish immigrant, right? She's been Catholic her whole life. She escaped communism to come to the U.S. in the early 90s. And that's where she met my dad, who was nothing when my parents first met. He was just some guy from Chicago. They met in a gas station. It's an awesome story. My dad had prayed every day since he was about 15 years old for a woman to bring him to Jesus. That's what he's told me. And so apparently when he met this beautiful Polish woman named Barbara, they fell in love, and he realized this was God's answer to his prayer, that this woman was going to make him a Catholic if she had to die trying. So my dad's a convert to Catholicism. He got confirmed at the age of 25. I'm a cradle Catholic. This has been me for my whole life. I've never had a time where I wasn't Catholic or a time where I wasn't attending church on a semi-regular basis. My parents decided to homeschool me and my 6 siblings, so shout out to Homeschool Gang. It was pretty awesome. That was all the way through 8th grade. My parents were kind of distraught at the lack of decency, lack of morality that my local public school provided. And we were pretty poor growing up, and so private school wasn't an option, right? Going to Catholic school wasn't something that we could make work. So I was raised with faith being at the very center of the family, right? Nearly every night, it was a rosary. It was family dinner. It was prayer before 3 meals a day. My history class, I'm sorry, we didn't have a history teacher. My mom read us books, right? My mom would read us, she read this series called Story of the World, which was just a beautiful way to learn about history in kind of a historical fiction context. But we'd read quite a bit, right? C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, we'd read scripture. We would get these works from secular authors, sometimes not even about theology, and you're still learning about the faith, right? We attended Mass every Sunday. My brothers and I became altar servers. Since we were homeschooled, we served all the daily masses because there was no one else to do it. And so I can't tell you how many times it's like 6:45 in the morning, and my mom is coming to knock on my door and wake me and my older brother up because we have to get to church and serve Mass for the, 10, 80-plus-year-old people who come to the Mass, right? So very used to be the youngest person in the room. But after we became altar servers, right, I started to notice that I had some kind of a love for serving the people of God, right, for serving the church in this kind of a context. And so when I got to high school age, I asked my parents if I could attend a seminary high school, right? So if those of you are not familiar with what a seminary high school is, it's a boarding school where boys will go to study to become priests at an early age. And so I went to St. Lawrence Seminary High School in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, which is like kind of far from a lot of things. It's in this area called the Holy Land because all of the towns have different saint names. My school was in the town of Mount Calvary, Wisconsin. There was Johnsburg, there was St. Cloud. I don't even know what St. Cloud is, right? There's just all these names and just a very Catholic culture. And my goodness, it was a beautiful blessing for me to be surrounded by 200 boys who were my age, who really felt strongly about the faith and who were actively discerning the priesthood, right? It was at this Franciscan seminary high school that I first kind of felt the presence of God working in my life, right? And you might think, well, I've been around this my whole life and I'd never felt God before, but I hadn't, right? A lot of my faith up until this point had been, it's because my parents are making me do it, which if I had to guess, I would say most of you, that's probably the case. Like, you go to Mass every Sunday, probably because your parents make you. And that's okay. Like, the fourth commandment says to honor your father and mother. That's a great thing to do. It's great to honor your parents. But there comes a time, especially when you reach high school and college, where your parents aren't going to be there to tell you to do things anymore, right? Where you're not going to wake up at 6:20 every morning at the bells of the church ringing to go to morning prayer and then breakfast and then go through 9 hours of classes in a day, 2 of which are theology. Can you imagine sitting in a theology classroom for 2 hours a day? Man, it was tough, right? So when I went to college, I was very carefully considering a college seminary, right? Which is where, Father Tilley went before he became a priest. He went to college seminary. And so I was looking at that. But I prayed, and one day I kind of I didn't feel this desire anymore. I didn't feel a desire to enter college seminary. And then I went and talked to my rector priest about it, and he told me, well, you got into Notre Dame, you might as well just go there. And so I did. So I went to the University of Notre Dame, which is a Catholic college, if you guys aren't aware. So by the time I got to college, I had been confirmed, right? My diocese also confirmed junior year of high school, so I was a junior when I got confirmed. But I don't think that it necessarily, my formation didn't necessarily prepare me for being kind of cut loose in college, right? My 4 years of college I like to call my Augustine years. If any of you are familiar with St. Augustine, you know that he lived kind of a crazy life for a little while. I wasn't all that crazy. I'm not a very out there person, but it was definitely a time where, I'll be real with you, my first week at Notre Dame at a Catholic university, I didn't go to Sunday Mass either, right? I woke up and I didn't go. I just kind of, stayed in my room, stayed in bed, went and hung out with some people from marching band. I was a band kid, yeah. I didn't really do it, right? I thank the Lord every day for my rector at college. His name was Nyat Win. He was a former seminarian as well, so he had been studying to be a priest for quite a while. And one day he approached me and found out that I played piano. And he told me, we need a pianist for our masses. Would you be willing to play piano and get paid to be at Mass? Because, I know you're Catholic. I know you're going to Mass every Sunday anyway. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I go to Mass every Sunday. So, yeah, there was a time in college, my first 2 years of college, I went to Mass because I got paid to do it. Yeah, I got paid to go to Mass. Yeah, I did. I played piano. Yeah. That's all that kept me in the church in college, was getting paid to play piano at Mass. Mass was a job. Mass was something I had to do. Mass was something that I got paid minimum wage to do. You can probably tell that that's not sustainable, right? How many of you guys have jobs? Do any of you have jobs? No, maybe you're a little too young. Some of you have jobs. Yeah, okay, some of you have jobs. Yeah, there comes a time where you love your job. The job that I had in high school, I worked at McDonald's. I did not love my job. It didn't pay enough. I dealt with people at 3 o'clock in the morning coming through my drive-thru, and they don't even know what they're ordering, right? It was a disaster. And so when you treat something like a job, it's a place where you wouldn't be unless you get paid, right? A vocation, I believe, is different, okay? But a job, like the way that we all view it, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't getting paid to do it. And it's true, I wouldn't have been at Mass if I wasn't getting paid to do it. But there's a shift in your worldview that eventually happens, right? I'm not supposed to make this too theological, but I'm a theology teacher, so I can't help it. When we look at right and wrong in the Catholic Church, there's two ways of telling whether something's right or wrong. There's something called a morality of obligation, and there's something called a morality of happiness, right? This comes to us through years of scholastic tradition. Morality of obligation, morality of happiness. A morality of obligation means you do something because it would be bad if you didn't, right? You brush your teeth because it'd be bad if you didn't. Do you brush your teeth because it makes you happy to brush your teeth? Probably not. Do you go to the dentist because it makes you happy to go to the dentist? No, right? Do any of you play sports? Show of hands. Okay, do you play sports because you need to play sports or else? Or do you play sports because you have fun playing sports? Because it makes you happy, right? Probably most of you, there's at least some kind of happiness in it, right? How many of you play video games? Oh, man, I love video games. Halo, oh, that's a good one. Yeah, Fortnite, any Fortnite players in here? Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I know he plays Fortnite, oh, yeah. All right. You do that because it's fun. You do that because it makes you happy. So I went to Mass because I had to, or else. If I didn't go to Mass, I lost my job. If I didn't go to Mass, I didn't get paid. Didn't go to Mass, I couldn't put gas in my car, right? Oh, but I went to band practice. Yeah, I spent 3 hours a day going to marching band because it was fun. I wasn't getting paid to do it. It was fun, right? I hung out with my friends because it was fun. You know how fun it is to just like be in college and sit around in a dorm room for like the entire night? You're just talking. It's fun. It's great. Yeah. That kind of all changed junior year. So junior year, I realized that there was something deeper that I needed in my faith, right? That there was something beyond simply doing this or else, okay? And so ultimately, there was a chance encounter. One morning, I woke up and I realized it was time for Mass. And it was the summer. And so I didn't have to play piano or anything, but I felt this longing. I felt this longing to go to Mass. And so I did. There was no more Mass on campus. It was summer. And so the closest Mass was actually at this place called St. Stanislaus Church in South Bend, Indiana. And I show up, and it was a Mass in a different language. It was in the Latin language. Any of you ever been to Latin Mass before? Okay, they're long, generally. It's in the Latin language. The order of the Mass is a little different. But let me tell you, when I knelt down in that church and I heard the organ playing its tune and I smelled the incense coming from beyond the altar rail and I heard the Gregorian chant, I cried. And it was the first time that Mass had ever made me cry. Something clicked that day where I realized what beauty looks like. And beauty doesn't look like doing whatever you want. It doesn't. Beauty and happiness doesn't look like sitting around in a dorm room for the entire night and just messing around. That's not what beauty or happiness looks like, right? To me, when I saw beauty and happiness, was right here for about 2 hours in a language I can't understand, in a language I can't speak. And so what I want to leave you with today is just to realize that I know right now that there's a lot of things that you do because you have to. So what you need to do is figure out why and how does this thing make me happy, right? Because Christ does make us happy. If there's any source of happiness in the world, it's Jesus Christ and the sacrifice that he made on that cross right there, right? And so once we can figure that out and once we can feel that and realize that and what it means to us, that's when you truly are able to develop that faith into a mature one that you've been confirmed in the Lord with. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Miss Mary Carlson. She is a PACE student, and she is going to share her story with you. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah. You kind of stole my thunder, not gonna lie. My talk actually starts out with why is it worth it? Why do we do anything? That whole concept, so great, awesome. So yeah, I'm Mary. I am a teacher. I teach middle school science, so I feel like middle school gang is here. So I teach middle school science, and so I'm a person who's really, I study biology, so I'm really into the origin of things, like where do they come from, why are they the way that they are, and I also teach religion, so that answers the question, why? So to start my talk, to start this time of, why, Mary, are you Catholic? Why do you go to Mass? Why do you believe? All the things. I'm going to suggest to you it's the same reason that you do anything, or a lot of things, right? Why do you hang out with your friends? Why do you eat food? Why do you do anything that gives you happiness, or at least the taste of it? Because there's some sort of goodness in it. And the church, Jesus, is what makes me happy. Jesus is the only thing that actually lasts. Because who's ever been hungry? Wow, weird, I've been hungry too. Yeah, and then I eat something and I feel a little better. And I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. And then like 3 hours later, I'm hungry again. Like, what is that? Jesus isn't like that. I mean, I'm hungry for Jesus, but it's not like he doesn't leave me, right? There's a lasting and a peace in his goodness and in his joy. So I had another direction I was gonna go with this, but I think I'm actually just gonna start kind of where my story starts, and that is in western Minnesota. In what is kind of like the Lutheran paradise, right? Like a bunch of Swedish people living their Lutheran lives. And I'm not Lutheran. I grew up in a Catholic family, but there wasn't a lot of like Catholic youths to hang out with. And so I grew up in the church, but I was really busy. And I was doing a lot of things because I wanted to be a doctor, and I was like, gotta start when I'm 8. Like, absolutely not. But I was busy. And there'd be times where I'd be like, wonder why I'm doing this. And it would just like be fleeting, and then I'd keep doing what I was doing. And this kind of continued, and I'd go to church things, and I was like, yeah, Jesus is cool. Yeah, this whole thing, I'm about it, sure. And that's kind of how I live my life, just busy, 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 and occasionally a thumbs up at Jesus. And how that kind of changed is a spicy detail. No, it's not really. I was in the kitchen one Saturday night in April in my junior year of high school, and I was standing across the kitchen from my high school sweetheart. And I was like, I really like this boy, you know, how that happens. And he looked across at me, and he looked me in the eyes, and he goes, Mary Carlson, which tends to happen with me. People use my first and last name. He was like, Mary Carlson, what do you want? I don't know what I want. What? Why is this boy asking me what I want? Like, I'm just trying to hang out, man. And really that was a jumping off point for, okay, Mary Carlson, you've been busy. You've done all these things, but to what end? For what purpose? Why? Is that all life is? Do all these things and then you die? And so this boy talked philosophy to me, asked me questions, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm the first one to do this. I am so cool. And so I started reading philosophy books, but I am not a philosopher. I was a kid who went to public school and liked science. So that happened, and I was, kind of like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. And so I keep going to church things, and I keep asking this question, but I also keep being busy. And so I go to college, I choose the most Catholic one in Minnesota, which isn't saying a lot, but it was the most Catholic one in Minnesota, and so I was like, I'm gonna get this right. I think it's in the church, but I hadn't encountered it yet. And so I go to school, end up on the Catholic women's floor. It was an accident, but thank you, Jesus, for that accident. And I end up on this floor, and I meet these women who are joyful, who have a reason, who have a being, who have answered these questions. And so I was like, these ladies are cool. Like, I want to be like them. And so I started to hang out with them, and they started to do these things where they'd go to adoration, and they would look at the monstrance, and they found joy in that. They didn't fall asleep. And I was like, well, that's weird. And so I told my small group this when we were at lunch, but I was like, okay, so I think the key to this happiness thing is being able to sit still. So I'd go into the chapel, and I'd set a timer, and I'd sit next to me, and I'd sit on my hands, and I'd say, okay, Jesus, today I am sitting still with you for 10 minutes. And that's what I'd do. And I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know any of these things, but I figured the sitting still would do it. Which, I think subtly it did. I taught a greater lesson, to be still in the presence of the Lord. But I continued to hang out with these people, and I continued to ask them kind of why they were the way that they were. They were joyful. They never stopped smiling, and they cared, and they looked at me. And they looked at me with a pause that acknowledged my existence, that stopped the busyness of my mind, that I was like, I am running 4 clubs, I am going to be the president of the Pre-Health Association, and blah, blah, blah. And they looked at me and they loved me. And I said, okay, I think this is it. I didn't tell you this when I told you the story about my high school sweetheart, but when he looked at me, what I said was, and you're all gonna be roll eyes, so I'm ready for it. Everybody get ready to coordinate the eye roll. But I said, I wanna be good. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know about the transcendentals. I didn't know about truth, beauty, and goodness. I was just like, I want to be good. And he was like, that's cool. And then we just continued our conversation that April night. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, this boy likes me, great. Continued in life with that. The desire for goodness followed me to college. And it followed me to those friends. And it followed me to the Mass. And it followed me to adoration. And it followed me to goodness himself, to Jesus. So while that night wasn't oh, wow, I met Jesus. It was wow, I have a desire, and I was blind to that. But in meeting women and men in community who knew the Lord and who were able to speak to the desires of my heart and say hey, Mary, do you want to be in the small group? Do you want to learn to pray? Mary, do you want to come on this retreat with us? Mary, do you want to give a talk? I was like, oh, sure, yeah, I'll do that. It was a yes, and it was a following of the goodness, but it led me to him, to Jesus. So why am I here? Why is it worth it? Why come back to Mass? Because it's a person. Because, not Mass, but Jesus is a person, and he's the only person who's going to last in your life, who's going to love you with the wholeness of love that you desire and that you deserve. Why do anything? Because we are in the gaze of Christ. We are in his love. We've been chosen for this. And right now you'll be like, Mary, what? I just want to go watch TikTok for hours. And yes, I've been in that hole too. Those things are good. And they can give you a couple chuckles and then you tell a funny joke later and it's great. But it doesn't last, right? You have to go back and watch 4 more hours to get another joke to tell your friends, right? Jesus, though, is someone you can come back to in the trials of life. Jesus is someone who's with you in the joys of life. Jesus is someone who surprises you. I remember when I first started to pray, it wasn't I had any crazy revelations or Jesus was appearing to me or anything like that, but I could feel his peace, I could feel his presence, and then he would I think it was Liz who talked about this in her talk, just the little ways that he'd love you throughout the day, or the little ways that you'd read something in scripture and you'd just have a movement of heart where you'd be oh, I think I need to do this today, and you would do it, and then some crazy encounter would happen, and it would just be whoa, Jesus, thanks for that surprise, thanks for loving me in that way, you're a pretty cool dude, and in that, that's what I give you today, because Jesus is going to show you who you are. Right now, you're trying to define that, you're trying to figure that out. Trust me, I did. I tried all the things. I tried bangs, which I'm back to, but I tried bangs, I tried all the things to be this is who I am, right? But he's the only one who can tell you that, so that's another reason it's worth it. He's the only one who can give you happiness. He's the only one who knows who you are, and he is a good friend. We have a good Father, a good friend, and a good Holy Spirit to guide us into our life so that we can encounter those moments of joy that are lasting, so that we can have those events in life that just like skyrocket us, and that Jesus actually like wants to give us the desires of our hearts. So I don't know, that's not what I wrote. It's not what I wrote, but it's why, I guess, why any of it's worth it, why I'm here, who Jesus is, all of those things. It's a radical reality of love. It's an adventure. And it's 100, and 1,000, and 1,000,000%, and I'm not a mathematician, obviously I teach science, but it's 1,000% worth it. And I am praying for you all in this. So if you're like, Mary, cool, awesome, great, that was nice, maybe I'd sometime like to try it out. Here's my parting challenge for you. Ask him. Ask Jesus to help you to get there. Ask Jesus to see why it's worth it. And persevere in it, because I didn't figure it out in the first 10 minutes that I sat on my hands in an empty chapel of like why it's worth it, but I kept coming back. And so my challenge to you is to create space in your life to ask those questions, and then ask Jesus, if you're real, help me to believe that. Jesus, if you love me, help me to feel that, right? Because it's not really an if, but if it's what gets you there, like, great. So yes, I pray that you all experience why it's worth it. I pray that you know the Lord and that you learn to love the Lord and are able to receive his love. And know that I'll be praying for you. Yeah, amen. Okay, that's all I got.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson. We really appreciate that. In your folders, there is a prayer. So we are at the end of our retreat. I don't remember what color it is. The yellow one, the purple one, one of them. Which one? Purple? I think it's the purple one. On the back of the purple one, there is a prayer. Unfortunately, I don't have one. Do you guys mind sharing? And so can I borrow yours? Thank you so much. But before we say, read the ending prayer, you have any words, Father? Okay. On the yellow one, right? Yellow. There are some discussion questions that hopefully you guys talked about in your small groups. But then there's 2 questions at the bottom that you're not going to have a chance to discuss in a group. Please take that home tonight. Before bed, read over those questions and spend 5 minutes thinking about them. Just 5 minutes. Okay? All right. Let's pray this prayer together. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Gracious and holy Father, please give me intellect to understand. All right, you are free to go. Your parents should be here in the next few minutes to pick you up. Take your folders and all of your things with you. Thank you.